morning, everybody. As we await the Alumni Parade and the procession, please welcome the MIT Police Honor Guard.
Later for you to watch. Todd and I are in a small classroom just off of Killian Court, MIT's central outdoor gathering space, underneath the Great Dome that is the preeminent architectural symbol of this institution. Following the parade of the MIT Police Honor Guard, we will begin with a special parade honoring the classes of 1970 and 71.
And Debbie, let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Right now we have 3 separate classes of 50-year graduates. Of course, this year's the class of 1972. But the classes of 1970 and 71 never had the opportunity to put on their beautiful hardwood jackets and march into the courtyard. So they are poised and ready to do that as well. And we're going to be announcing each of those classes separately.
It's a wonderful tradition here at MIT to honor the 50th reunion, and I think both the students and the alumni of those classes really appreciate the opportunity to reflect on the achievements of these individuals over a half century.
You should really see the smiles in their faces as they come down the aisle and then move off to the reserved seats that they have set aside for them. It's something that they have been looking forward to literally for decades, and it's really a great thrill for them all. Maybe a quick word about how the sausage is made here. As Debbie mentioned, we're in a small classroom right off the courtyard, but I'm also making the courtyard announcement. So in approximately 2 minutes, we're going to take just a few seconds break while I talk into this microphone to make the announcement into the courtyard of the arrival of the alumni classes.
So one interesting fact is that the class of 1970 had their senior year disrupted, so much so that there was a question as to whether or not there would be a commencement ceremony at all. In the end, there was a very modest, quiet ceremony that did not feature a speaker, but a moment of silence, and there were no parades. So I can tell you that the members of that class were very much looking forward to their 50th reunion, an opportunity to parade into Killian Court for the first time. And as we all know what happened, the pandemic, in an ironic and cruel twist, precluded that particular celebration. So we are incredibly happy to welcome those classes back to campus.
Another interesting change this year is that the graduates are already in the courtyard and have taken their seats. They're not doing the long procession in as they've done in prior years.
Yes, so it's a real year of learning for all of us here at MIT as we invent a whole new ceremony. You're looking at the seal of the Institute that was created with the founding of MIT, and it has appeared on every diploma that has been awarded ever since. I might say, though, that the awarding of diplomas was a bit of an afterthought for the first class that was to receive them in 1867. In fact, commencement was an afterthought, and a very panicked founder, William Barton Rogers, wrote to the Massachusetts State Legislature for emergency legislation to be passed that would authorize the Institute to issue those very first degrees. It came through in a matter of days, and we have been graduating students ever since. But that first class didn't get their diplomas for almost a year because they had to be designed, printed, inked, and in the meantime, the founder, William Barton Rogers, fell ill and was unable to actually sign the diplomas until the following spring.
It's a little more efficient now. This year, for the first time, as we have mentioned, each of the different departments and schools, especially for the graduate students, the masters and the PhDs, have their own separate ceremonies. The first one was on Tuesday evening. We also did a few last night and during the day yesterday, and there'll be more going on today with the undergraduates of 22, and as we mentioned, the classes of 20 and 21 get to come back and do something they really wish they could have done the last couple of years, now excited to do today.
One of the things that was introduced in 2020 was the digital diploma. I'm not certain how we're going to collect that. We have a wonderful collection of diplomas at the MIT Museum. In fact, we're involved in a fairly interesting preservation effort to conserve the diploma of Robert Robinson Taylor, MIT's first black graduate, and we will be proudly putting that on display when the new MIT Museum opens next October 2nd.
And that new museum is in a wonderful location, Deb.
It is indeed. We're right on top of the Kendall Square T, where MIT has created a brand new welcome center, including the admissions office, maker spaces, a wonderful outdoor space, and of course our new museum. So we are delighted for the first time to really be able to welcome visitors and guests to campus, to campus.
It's really the new front door to MIT, Kendall Square. And one of the good things that happened during the pandemic is it gave the people doing the construction of the new towers and the new facilities unimpeded access there. Of course, they were taking all of the safety precautions, but as one who came into campus only occasionally during those 2 years, it was marvelous to see the great progress they made. And everything is almost finished right now. Just a couple of last things, including the museum that'll be opening shortly. And then we're really going to have a fresh face on the front of MIT.
Why, in the last 4 years, and particularly in the last 2 years, we've opened a brand new dormitory for students. We have another one under construction. A new home for the School of Architecture and Planning will be built in the old Metropolitan Warehouse complex. And perhaps most exciting of all is the construction of the new Schwartzman College of Computing.
And also there's a new Music and Theater Arts building.
Indeed, there is underway. So many visitors, both residents of Cambridge as well as those returning alumni, have been completely overwhelmed by the changes to Kendall Square and beyond. It's a much taller city, much denser city. Right now it's full of construction crews, so it's quite a challenge to park. No more so this weekend, which featured the commencement and reunions of both Harvard University and MIT.
And it's not just outside, there are changes inside. All MIT alums and staff know what the infinite corridor is, that very long corridor that goes from 77 Massachusetts Avenue all the way down to the center of campus. And it used to be just full full of offices, and the admissions office, which is now moved out, has been transformed into a welcome space where anybody can go in and sit down and chat and meet people. It's a great community space, and I think we're really going to see people enjoy that over the years to come.
Indeed. In fact, part of that space is dedicated to the alumni, which give them a hub right here on campus for meetings and gatherings, something that they haven't had for many years. People returning to campus will notice that the campus has been spruced up just the same. The facilities crew have done a remarkable job in preparing the campus, not only the Killian Court areas, but dozens of tents around, but inside there's fresh coats of paint, the floors are waxed. It's really looking terrific.
Also want to give a shout out to Norm Magnuson, who's the director of grounds here at MIT, who always makes the courtyard, he and his crew, just a beautiful gathering space for this incredible event. And Norm is going to be retiring next week after over 40 years of service at MIT and a legacy in his family. His father was a manager of a dormitory here when I was an undergraduate back in the 70s. So we're really going to miss Norm, but we wish him all the best in his retirement.
As you're watching this screen, you're seeing a number of robes, but I'm going to pause and let Todd make his big announcements.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Alumni Parade led by the members of the class of 1970, celebrating their 52nd reunion.
The class of 1970, of course, arrived in 1966, and boy, did things change over their 4 years. Perhaps the most eventful changes in the history of the Institute for about a half a century. With them, they brought a spirit that encouraged real attentiveness to diversity, the first efforts to create recruitment among Black and other Hispanic and other students. And here they come. Leading the class in front is Karen Aronson, the class president. She's helping hold a banner. They're all decked out in their jackets and with MIT seals on their badges. We are delighted to welcome them back. Each class, by the way, tends to develop a kind of hat or scarf or some other article of clothing that was a special souvenir from this particular reunion event. So I'm sure I will see not only the jackets, but those hats for many years to come.
That's right, and you can see the banner now, 70. Each class will have a banner at the very lead, held by the class officers. And in just a couple moments, we will transition to the class of 71, and then finally the class of 72, celebrating their very own 50th anniversary of graduation. We've got beautiful weather here in the courtyard today, by the way. We've had ceremonies that have been cold and very hot and very windy, and today it's going to be in the 70s, a little bit on the humid side, but some cloudiness, so the sun is not baking down. Everybody's going to be really comfortable. And we're hoping for the same thing tomorrow when the classes of 20 and 21 come back. There'll be some rain tonight and perhaps later tomorrow afternoon, but we're really hoping we get that nice window for a beautiful ceremony as well.
We're delighted to see the students rise and cheer on their now fellow alumni.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, celebrating their 51st reunion, the members of the class of 1971. And here they come.
Indeed. Also wearing their jackets and their class banner. You can just get a peek at it. As you look around the crowds today, you'll see robes of many colors, but I'd like to call attention to the MIT doctoral robe. That's a special robe that was a relatively recent addition to the Institute. It's a gray robe with cardinal piping and tam, and marks, of course, MIT graduates not just here but everywhere else in the world. So when these individuals become faculty members or at other institutions, you can always tell the MIT graduate for their distinctive cardinal and gray robe.
Very striking. Yesterday I was announcing and reading names at the School of Architecture and Planning ceremonies in Kresge Auditorium, and sitting up on the stage were all the faculty in their robes representing the schools they went to, but of course many of them had those very distinctive MIT robes, and it's always a pleasure to see that.
I'm not able in our shot here in the control room to read all the buttons on the hats, but these were classes 70, 71, 72 that saw a lot of protests. So it wouldn't surprise me, Todd, if the buttons that festoon the hats and jackets of these classes include some sentiments that are encouraging the Institute to adopt a particular policy on climate or diversity, and we're delighted that is happening. Oh, that shirt with the Earth photo is that's a class of 70 members sneaking in to 70. That class of 70 was well known for the famous Earthrise photo, the photo that many have considered one of the most influential in history, particularly was the impetus for Earth Day, which took place in the spring of 1970.
And of course, as we move through the 70s, there were the protests about the Vietnam War and other things. So I suspect in years to come, we'll be seeing that as well. But one of the big initiatives at MIT now is all about sustainability and mitigating climate change. It's an institute-wide initiative which takes in research across the entire institute, is also collaborating with industry from all around the world. And we're trying to solve the world's most difficult problems. And if anybody can do it, and MIT can do it.
Indeed. In fact, it's not just, of course, an existential problem for the globe, but right here on campus, there are a lot of concerns. When these buildings that we're sitting in were first designed, it was thought that they would sink over time because the land underneath us is fill. This was tidal lands originally inhabited by indigenous peoples here in what we call Massachusetts today, and they added an extra 13 feet of soil just to help mitigate that problem of sinking. But flooding is a problem even now, and so solving these climate problems will be vital for the city of Boston and Cambridge, as well as the globe.
The buildings that we're sitting in right now and that surround the courtyard were built in 1916, the original core group of buildings. And of course, over the decades, the infrastructure within the buildings, the heating, the ventilation, or lack thereof, the plumbing has really deteriorated. And MIT, to its great credit, over the last 10 years or so, has made a tremendous effort to revitalize the infrastructure inside these buildings. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. You have to take the buildings offline, move people around, and when they're done, you really don't see any big changes, maybe some cosmetic ones, but it makes a huge difference in terms of the ability for the building to be sustainable, to be economical, and to be one that'll be more helpful for generations to come.
Indeed, and one of the things that I've seen in the historical records is that the architect, William Wells Bosworth, and the constructor, Stone and Webster, also MIT alums, were given the charge that these buildings should last 100 years.
I think we did okay.
And so the fact that it was just around 2013-16 that we had to do some renovations, well, we got our money's worth, I can say, out of these particular campus structures.
And at the same time, because these buildings surround Killian Court, where the ceremony is going on today, much change has gone on in the court itself in terms of new plantings, new trees, sustainable architecture all surrounding the courtyard, and it's really a beautiful sight to see. If you have the opportunity to come here during the academic year or during the summer, you can wander through the courtyard and really enjoy it.
Indeed. In fact, the courtyard originally was just gravel with wooden walkways, and they thought there was going to be a boat launch down to at the Charles River, which might be the way some visitors would arrive here on campus. That was quickly changed, actually, by an MIT alumna who developed the plans that included trees and grass. And the original round of trees were all elm trees.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, in their 50th reunion redcoats, for the first time, the members of the class of 1972. So there you have it. The 50th reunion class is just about to enter the courtyard. What a thrill it is for these people to return in person for the first time and participate in the ceremony in the redcoats. These coats are mailed to the participants wherever they may be in the world, and they get to keep them, of course, after the ceremony. I recall back in 2008, a dear friend of mine was celebrating his 50th reunion, but he lived in Thailand, and he didn't want the red coat shipped all the way over there for fear it would be lost. So he had it mailed to me, and I held it in my office here on the MIT campus until his reunion. And when I presented him with that coat, he was grinning from ear to ear.
Leading the procession that you see right now is one of Todd and my colleagues, Bonnie Kellerman, a member of the class of 1972 and wonderful colleague in resource development that we've had the privilege of working with over the years. Following these classes, oh, look at the hats there with their special bands.
He's buttons all over.
Yes, indeed. I was starting to say before the announcement, this court used to be ringed by the American elm tree, which succumbed sadly to Dutch elm disease, and so the trees that you see now are the second generation of trees, and in half a century, 60 plus years actually, they've really grown to offer wonderful shade and cooling to the participants today, as well as to students and classes that take place out in the courtyard during the beginning and of the term in the fall and the end of the term in the spring semesters.
So let's talk a little bit about what's happening now in the background. The stage principals, the faculty, and the corporation, in other words, the board of directors of MIT, are leaving the Bush Room, which is here in the central core of the campus, and they're proceeding down the Infinite Corridor and will be lining up so that they can begin to process into the courtyard, which should be happening in approximately 10 minutes or so. After that, what will happen is that the prelude music is going to be stopping, and we will then make the announcement for the academic procession to enter the court. So that will be the faculty, the officers of MIT, and the MIT Corporation.
And that will then, of course, be followed by the actual ceremony itself, which will include speeches by our special guest, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo Iweala, who is an MIT alumna herself, earned her Master's of City Planning here in 1978 and her PhD in 1981. Dr. Ngozi is the Director General of the World Trade Organization, the first woman, first African. She was also the first finance minister of Nigeria and considered one of the most distinguished and inspirational figures in the world. We are delighted to welcome her back. This isn't her first time speaking to an MIT audience. In 2016, she was the honored speaker at the doctoral hooding ceremony.
For many years, MIT did not have a commencement speaker. When I graduated as an undergraduate in 1977, we had no commencement speaker. The president gave a talk and the undergraduate officers did. But Debbie, what year did the commencement speakers begin?
Well, we had a number of speakers. Then we had a period of time where there was only the presidents of the classes. So you either had Howard Johnson or I'm not certain who was Jerry Wiesner.
Jerry Wiesner
was your
my
speaker.
president, followed by Paul Gray.
Jerry Wiesner is the person who brought commencement to Killian Court. Said, for better or for worse, we're going to pray to the weather gods each year, but it allowed for a much larger audience. There's approximately 10,000 seats here in Killian Court that are set up. And whereas previously, Todd, were you in Rockwell Cage?
I was in Rockwell Cage. It was very hot, very humid, and we were allowed only 2 guests, the student and his or her parents.
So it was a revelation to have commencement outdoors, and we've been very lucky over the years. I think we've only had 3 or 4 occasions where the conditions were so awful that there was some consideration of an alternative location.
But we didn't do it. We stayed outside. We had a cold and rainy day. It was in the 40s. We've had heat in the 90s. But the idea is that people had really set their hopes on graduating in Killian Court. And so the decision was made, if there was severe weather that could be harmful to life, then it would move inside. In other words, if there was lightning in the area or winds gusting over 40-some miles an hour. But the decision was made to stay in the court if the weather was marginal. And in retrospect, everybody seems to agree that they preferred that.
Indeed. So a couple of facts about the commencement ceremonies this week. The news office has given us the latest figures, but 1,099 undergraduate students and 2,590 graduate students will receive their diplomas. That's a total of 3,689 graduates. There are, in addition to the 1,100 or so bachelor's degrees, there are 1,980 master's degrees, 735 doctoral degrees, and 8 engineer degrees.
And speaking of those undergraduates, this is new this year for the first time. Since the undergraduates are not receiving and marching during this ceremony, there will be a separate ceremony for the class of 2022 this afternoon, beginning at 2 o'clock. Not here on Killian Court, but it's going to be up on Briggs Field, the big athletic field that stretches from behind Kresge Auditorium all the way out to the Westgate dormitory. And there's a tent there that will seat 6,000 people. There's another tent behind it that has room for 4,000 people for staging, and behind that there's yet another tent. And so everything will be undercover, and the class of 22 will be processing in. They'll be processing in order, and each student will receive recognition by having his or her name read live by me or one of my colleagues, which has been a tradition we have been doing here for at least the last 20 years.
One tradition, however, that is not continuing is the presentation of the actual diploma. That was a source of incredible anxiety in the registrar's office for many years, to not only have the diplomas ready, but to stack them in a very precise order, and required something like 6 or 7 checkpoints between the locations where students lined up and when they marched in, to ensure that each student received the actual diploma. MIT has seen the wisdom in the efficiency that many of its sister institutions have proceeded. Students will instead receive a special scroll. That digital diploma will be instantaneously theirs on their cell phone, but a paper diploma will, in fact, follow.
Yes, and in fact, they can pick it up at the Stata Center over the next couple of days. It was very stressful for us, because even as the students lined up, even if they had passed 6 or 7 checkpoints, at the very last minute, somebody could have wanted to run to the restroom, or somebody who is not in the right place could have inserted him or herself in the line. And every now and then, while I was up on the stage reading, the registrar standing next to me would put his finger on it and say, "Don't say that name." Or, even worse, give me a little card and say, "Read this name now." And it's one that I had never seen before.
Yes, Todd and his colleagues would practice those names. There was a special technique or involved, not technique, but students were invited to call in and say and pronounce their name so that the readers would get it as true as possible. You're noticing here in the pictures that many students are wearing special colored stoles, and those indicate a variety of affiliations and associations, from a particular class to a department to a association. There are cords of many colors, and so, but one of the ones that you see with the kente cloth represent the students from the Black Student Union that had a special ceremony to honor their graduates last month.
We're just about ready to welcome the academic procession into the courtyard. I've been given the signal. It'll be in the next minute to minute and a half. And when that happens, you will see them walk up the center aisle of Killian Court. And Deb, they have some ceremonial objects which they bring with us.
Indeed. There is, in fact, a mace and a shepherd's crook. The mace is carried by the master of ceremonies for the procession, the shepherd's crook by the chair of the faculty. These were items given to the Institute I'm trying to remember, it was the class of 1907 at their 50th reunion that introduced in 1957 the mace. It's a beautiful object, and we'll talk more about that once we get a good visual on it.
Looks like it's going to be just under a minute now. The procession is just about ready to line up at the entrance to Killian Court, and the folks that are getting ready to escort them up to the stage are preparing to do so. One change this year, as we've been saying, is that the students are not following the faculty. So whereas it used to take 50 minutes or so for all the students to process into the courtyard, once the faculty and the officials of the stage have risen to the stage, then the program is going to begin, and that should take just a matter of 10 or so minutes for that to occur. So that's one of the other big changes that's occurring this year.
So I'm really interested to watch the pictures here of the students in the audience. They sometimes are catching glimpses of themselves as there are large Jumbotron-style screens. So they'll be typing away on their phones. That is, in fact, a very new tradition here. So many of them, of course, are keeping in touch with their friends and family members wherever they may be seated in the courtyard.
So I've just been given the 1-minute signal for the third time. Oh, here we go. Stand by.
And here you are.
Ladies and gentlemen, now please rise and welcome the academic procession. And there we have it. So you see the academic procession now coming into the courtyard. That's the Charles River in the background.
Carrying the mace is Dr. Annalisa Weigel, who is a 3-time alumna of the Institute and professor here. She is accompanied by the chair of the corporation, Diane Green, and President Reif to her left.
The gentleman you see at the front in the dark suit is Ted Johnson. He's the executive director of MIT Commencement. He and his staff are responsible for this, not only this ceremony, but for the entire week's worth of ceremonies. This is his first year doing this in its entirety, and he is doing an amazing job, as is everybody. It really takes a great team to put this together of hundreds and hundreds of people, and you can see the benefits of what they're doing.
you cannot see her just yet, but behind President Reif is our honored speaker, Dr. Ngozi, and Dr. Susan Hockfield, President Emerita of MIT. And coming again behind President Reif is Chancellor Melissa Nobles. And I will, as I can point them out, Eric Grimson, I believe, is sort of occasionally can be seen behind that mace wearing the sunglasses.
I see Dean Schmidtlein of Sloan School.
Yes, and Vice President Maria Zuber.
Yep, Anandra Chachakasan of the School of Engineering. Kristen Van Vliet, who's Associate Provost. Cynthia Barnhart, the
new Provost
of MIT. Sanjay Sarma, Vice President
of Open Learning. And now you can begin to see, of course, if you're good, you can guess the variety of institutions. The faculty marshals are here, festooned in custom MIT robes for the occasion, instead of their normal institutional robes from the institutions that they graduated from.
When the Chief Marshal reaches the end of the ramp, the mace will be placed in the holder and remain standing at the foot of the stage, and then the stage principals and the corporation will ascend the stage. They'll remain standing, and then the faculty marshal will join the
Dr.
Chief Marshal.
Widnall is coming in. Sheila Widnall was first woman to be Secretary of the Air Force and first woman to earn her doctorate in aeronautical engineering here at MIT.
Institute Professor, which is the highest honor that a faculty member can achieve here at MIT. So there you see.
That's Philip Corey in his Harvard robes with his back right now to us. All of these individuals are doing multiple duty because they not only are participating in this ceremony, but in many of the other ceremonies for each of the schools.
The Sloan School of Management, for example, has had 4 separate graduating ceremonies. I participated in 2 of them, and the deans and associate deans participated as well, and I think it's worked out very well. It's smaller, it's more intimate, community of people together celebrating their achievements over the past couple of years. I suspect this is a change that we will see for a long time to come.
Indeed, I think it's an opportunity for classmates to reunite with each other and to see each other before, particularly our graduate students. They really go off and do amazing things. This year alone, for example, there were something like 23 new corporations founded, close to 800 patent applications, and another 400 or 500 issued. So students here at MIT are very entrepreneurial. It's one of the qualities of the Institute that we're most proud of, and feel fortunate to, the numbers don't really reveal all the details of what some of these companies end up doing. But if you think about the case counts, for example, of COVID cases in wastewater, that's an MIT spin-off corporation.
Yes, the founder was the speaker at the School of Architecture and Planning ceremony yesterday afternoon.
Standing in front is the far right, Diane Green, Cindy Barnhart, the provost, Maria Zuber, the vice president of research, and Eric Grimson, who is chair of the Commencement Planning Committee, I believe, this year, as well as being associate
Chancellor for Academic Advancement.
That's right.
Yes. And we also saw a moment ago President Reif, and this will be his last commencement. He has announced that he's going to be retiring at the end of the year after a decade or so at the leadership of MIT. Has just had incredible challenges and has handled them so superbly. He's been a marvelous president.
Yes, it was my privilege to be part of announcing his inaugural ceremonies in the fall of 2011, and I'm delighted to be back here for this ceremony. I'm sure there will be other festivities to mark his tenure here at the Institute, which has indeed responded to many global challenges, but also seen a major transformation of the Institute. I think particularly powerful is his insistence on being open and acknowledging the Institute's past, accepting both when it's fallen short sometimes in its ideals, and seeking solutions to them. I think that will be a hallmark of his time here at MIT.
And from a programmatic standpoint, he led the vision of the Schwarzman College of Computing, which has opened in the last couple of years, and a number of institute-wide initiatives which are multidisciplinary, spanning all 5 schools in the college, the 20-some-odd academic departments, hundreds of research laboratories. For example, the MIT Sustainability and Climate Consortium, which was launched last year. We have an industry collaboration in quantum computing, and much more.
And now we're going to turn it over for the ceremony.
Together with this assembly, on the occasion of the OneMIT Commencement ceremony of this institution, and in recognition of the degrees being conferred on the class of 2022. The stage assembly and audience will please remain standing for the invocation by Reverend Thea Keith Lucas, chaplain to the Institute, and join the corollaries of MIT in the singing of one verse of the Star-Spangled Banner.
Good morning. Even as we gather on this joyful occasion, MIT's flags are at half-staff to mark our nation's grief for the children and teachers who were killed in Uvalde, Texas. Please join me in a moment of silence for all people who have lost lives and loved ones to violence. And now, it is my privilege to invoke the spirit of this moment. Our dear graduates, I invite you, step fully into this day. Let yourself be immersed in its joy. Wade waist deep into the river of this celebration. It does not matter how you got here, whether you eased your way in, feeling the water by fractions of inches, or plunged headlong, dunking yourself in the experience. We welcome the reluctant and the reckless alike. Nor does it matter whether you floated smoothly here along a well-charted path or nearly lost your way among the unexpected eddies, or fought upstream the whole way, relishing the victory every time your knees sliced forward against the rushing current. The planner, the wanderer, the rebel, you are all welcome to this day. Let us pause here together for a moment. The engine of history churns along, kicking up anxiety and enmity and falsehood like great clouds of roiled mud. Let it settle. The ripples of your fears flow out and away from you. They grow distant and small. If you stand still long enough, the surface releases from wave to perfect plane. The light stops splitting and scattering, and suddenly you can see all the way down. Down past your own curled toes, down past the smooth river stones, down through these wild years of new growth taking root, down through the outstretched hands of love that hold you up, down through the decades of minds building on minds, the ladders of precious knowledge made to fit the arch of your particular feet, down through the centuries of brave and weary journeys, the hopes and tragedies that brought our many ancestors to this bank, down to the abiding presence of the first people who tended and kept this river land and who honor it still as their ancestral home. Down through millennia as the water carved its path to the sea and molten earth cooled into bedrock, bearing us on its broad and sturdy back. Look down into the stream of beautiful life. Around you, the swirl of beings that swim and burrow and fly, breath and heartbeat, so braided together. Within you, you also feel the breath and the heartbeat, your inner companions, held in their rhythm. You are never alone. Treasure this moment of clarity. Without a shadow, without a doubt, you belong here. You belong here. For you are the world's, and the world is yours.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free?
Please be seated. It's now my immense privilege to welcome to the stage our guest speaker, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. We are also pleased to welcome our alumni celebrating their special reunions in their distinguished red jackets, the classes of 1970, 1971, and 1972. And now let me introduce our commencement speaker. We live in a time when hope and inspiration seem to be in short supply, when it sometimes can seem almost impossible to believe that the actions of a single individual can make a difference. I am particularly proud to introduce our commencement speaker, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, because her extraordinary life and career make this kind of pessimism impossible. Fearless, passionate, possessed of unbounded energy and intelligence, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala has been a pathbreaker, both in Nigeria and on the world stage. Since she earned her PhD in Regional Economics and Development here at the Institute in 1981, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala has applied her considerable talents to formulating public policy to solve some of the world's most intractable problems. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala is widely known as a skilled negotiator and an effective consensus builder, able to bridge the interests of diverse stakeholders. She is a firm believer in the power of trade to enable developing countries to achieve robust economic growth and environmentally sustainable development. As managing director of the World Bank, she directed the bank's $81 billion operational portfolio to assist countries in Africa, South Asia, Europe, and Central Asia. As Nigeria's finance minister, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala renegotiated the external debt, stabilized the national accounts, and made it her mission to root out corruption and increase fiscal transparency, often at great risk to herself and her family. I highly recommend her book, Fighting Corruption is Dangerous. She has another book on women in leadership, and all of her books are published by the MIT Press. She told me they always bid the highest. As the chair of Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, she helped oversee the immunization of hundreds of millions of children. In her current post as the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala has pressed rich countries to support COVID vaccine equity and is tackling the immense challenge of bringing order and fairness to multilateral trade. In every role, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala has applied her exceptional analytical skills, her charismatic leadership, her integrity, and strength of character to answer one fundamental question: how can governments and NGOs make life better for people? And I think today maybe use technology, she tells me. Please join me in offering our warmest MIT welcome, a welcome home, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Woo.
Well, thank you for that more than wonderful introduction. It is so lovely to be here with you today. President Rife, Chancellor Nobles, Provost Barnhart, Ms. Green, President of the MIT Corporation, alumni, hello classes of 70, 71, and 72, faculty, staff, parents, friends, and most importantly, the graduates of MIT's class of 2022. I could not be more honored or more delighted to be here with you in Killian Court today. It is a bittersweet day because this is also the last commencement of a wonderful president and a good friend, Raphael Rife. I want to take just a moment to pay tribute to his academic, institutional, and thought leadership of these past 10 years. The MIT model, which President Rife has done so much to develop, is influencing higher education and research around the world. A testament to this is the number of former MIT professors and staff now in senior positions at other top universities. To take just a few examples, former Associate Provost and Vice President for Research, Alice Gast, is now President of Imperial College London, having previously served in that role at Lehigh University. Subra Suresh, former Dean of the School of Engineering, became President of Carnegie Mellon University after a stint in the Obama administration, and now leads the prestigious Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. All of you will remember Provost Marty Schmidt, who was recently appointed President of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. And of course, I have to mention someone I remember as a young professor of environmental studies in no other than DUSP, the Department of Urban Studies and Planning, former MIT Chancellor, and current Harvard professor, Larry Bacow. President Rife symbolizes what is so respected about MIT around the world: human-centered science and innovation for the challenges of today, but also looking ahead to the challenges of tomorrow and the decades to come. Raphael, we wish you well in your new endeavors. As I stand here, memories are flooding back. On my first day of graduate school as an MCP student in DUSP in September 1976, I must give a shout out to DUSP now. Hello, DUSP! I remember going to the International Students Office, worried about how I was going to cover my tuition and board for the second semester and thereafter. I was met with wide smiles and open arms by the wonderful staff in that office. They told me not to worry, and that once they get an international student in, their job is to make sure that student graduates. They would help me find the means, an RA or TA position or a loan. They were proud, they said, that international students had one of the best loan repayment records among all students. So I shouldn't worry. I should just concentrate on my studies. They had my back. You can imagine what a warm and fuzzy feeling that gave me, especially since I could reliably say that not every Cambridge-based institution was as welcoming at that time. So began my love for this great institution on whose grounds we stand today. In 1981, I again stood where we are today, having finished my PhD in regional economics and development under the supervision of a crackerjack dissertation committee led by Professors Alan Strout, Karen Polensky, and Lloyd Rodwin, that was as caring as it was demanding. I was heavily pregnant, virtually 9 months, with my first child when I defended my dissertation. Writing the dissertation itself had been rocky, with lots of tearful weekends as I struggled with my data and SPSS. Does anyone remember that? I clearly remember Alan telling me after I submitted my first chapter that it was below my usual standard and that I should tear it up and start again. I spent all weekend in tears before picking myself up and starting over. In fact, I'm convinced that they only let me get away with the defense because of that baby. I let them know I was due any moment and that I could have the baby that day, maybe right there during the defense. They looked terrified. And you can imagine how quickly it all went so they could get me out of there. By the way, this is a good trick to try. But I'm sorry, it won't work for you men. MIT has helped make me who I am today. I know how hard each of you has worked to get here. I hope that as you embark on this journey called life, you will return one day, as I have done today, with good feelings and these same words: MIT helped make me who I am today. On top of the demands of one of the world's most famously rigorous academic institutions, your time at MIT has been disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. All of you have had to adjust and adapt. A pandemic is not something I had to deal with as a student, but my education was also interrupted when I was young by the civil war in Nigeria, the Nigeria-Biafra War. I did not go to school for 3 years from the ages of 12 to 15, as my family ran from place to place in Biafra to escape the bombs and the shelling. The images we see from the war in Ukraine today remind me of the suffering I witnessed and endured then. My family made it through but lost everything and had to start over. I was able to go back to school, but my parents made clear to me that education is a privilege, and with that privilege comes responsibility. The responsibility to use it for others, not just for yourself. And that is why today, when I think of the children of Uvalde, I feel pain. I feel grief. As a mother and a grandmother, I feel devastated. That lesson about education, which these children have been so deprived, is a lesson I carry with me every day. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your lives, but I'm here to say that the world needs your smarts, your skills, your adaptability, and the great training you have received here at MIT. The world needs you for innovation, for policy making, for connecting the dots so implementation can actually happen. So let me say a few words on combining science, social science, and public policy to meet the challenges of our future. The difficult and uncertain times we live in have been called a polycrisis, simultaneous compounding crisis in the economy, the environment, public health, and international security. The COVID-19 pandemic is still with us. Soaring food costs were threatening hunger in poor countries, even before the war in Ukraine made the situation much worse. And heat waves from South Asia to Europe are already lowering this season's farm yields in countries like India. Yet another reminder that climate change is here. MIT, the university, its faculty and researchers, its students, and you, its freshly minted graduates, sit squarely in the middle of providing the multifaceted solutions we need to the challenges of the global commons that we confront today. Let me explain why. A common thread running through many of these challenges is the central role for science. We need technological innovation to get us out of the holes we're in. At the same time, for the kinds of problems we're dealing with, new inventions and new ways of doing things will have an impact, mainly to the extent they are scaled up across dividing lines of income and geography. We don't just need vaccines, we need shots in arms across the world to be safe. We need new renewable technologies that fuse not just in rich countries to fight climate change, but also in poor ones. We need new agricultural technologies built to local conditions and culture if we are to fight hunger. In other words, we need innovation, but we also need access, equity, diffusion. We need to get the science right, and we need to get the domestic and international policy frameworks, the incentive structures, and the public and private investments right, too. MIT, of course, is perched at the cutting edge of both science, social science, and public policy. To buttress the case I'm making, I want to look at some scientific and public policy issues associated with the COVID-19 response, as well as climate change. And as a proud MIT alum, I will also look at how the MIT community has been working on these 21st century problems since at least the 1970s. And as Director General of the World Trade Organization, I shall link this to where multilateralism and trade has been a force for good, amplifying and diffusing new ideas and new technology. But I'll also comment on where international cooperation has been falling short in getting policy frameworks and solutions right. Turning now to the global challenges, it's clear that if you're President Rice's big preoccupations, getting the innovation we need, and speeding up the time between new ideas and commercialized products are directly relevant to the road we're traveling now as a global community and to the road ahead. When we look at the COVID-19 response, we see we had good science, but not so good politics and public policy. We knew a pandemic was overdue. Bill Gates even gave a famous TED talk about the risks back in 2015, but we were not ready. This has been made painfully clear by the roughly 15 million excess deaths worldwide over the past 2.5 years, as estimated by the World Health Organization. At the national and international levels, we hadn't made the necessary health system investments, nor had we put in place the governance arrangements and early warning systems needed to identify and contain potentially dangerous new pathogens. In other words, policy-wise, pandemic preparedness was on a global level totally missing. But we were fortunate that scientists were better prepared. Science enabled us to address a global public bad, thereby saving millions of lives. Safe and effective vaccines came online in the space of mere months after the novel coronavirus was identified. But this seemingly overnight success was years, even decades in the making, and MIT was at the heart of that story. At MIT's Center for Cancer Research in the 1970s, back when Kendall Square was still mostly warehouses and factories, future Institute professor, Nobel laureate Philip Sharp, discovered RNA splicing. His work revealed the potential of messenger RNA, the technology behind the most effective COVID-19 vaccines. Around the same time, another future Institute professor, Robert Langer, DSc in Chemical Engineering, MIT class of 1974, began decades of pioneering work on the drug delivery of large molecules, including mRNA. In 2010, he participated in the founding of a company that aimed to do something totally new, to develop modified RNA therapeutics. That company struggled for years, high on promise but low on cash, until the COVID-19 pandemic struck, and Moderna's vaccine made it a household name. But even though the world got the innovation it needed, and it was successfully commercialized, we fell short on access. When vaccines became available, we did not prioritize the most vulnerable populations in the world, and we did not prioritize all frontline workers in all countries. Instead, much of 2021 saw what WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus described as, and I quote, a handful of rich countries gobbling up the anticipated supply as manufacturers sold to the highest bidder, while the rest of the world scrambled for scraps, unquote. As with life-saving HIV/AIDS drugs 20 years ago, people in poor countries, especially in Africa, found themselves at the back of the queue for COVID-19 vaccines. The COVAX facility, which I'm proud to say I participated in birthing, as an ambitious attempt to avoid a repeat of that experience by getting vaccines to poor countries at the same time as rich ones, was frustrated in its goals by vaccine nationalism and a lack of international solidarity. While global vaccine supplies have now increased, the lag in getting this to poor countries allowed apathy and vaccine hesitancy to set in, leading to a situation where, on the back of weak health systems, only 17% of people in Africa and 13% of people in low-income countries have been fully vaccinated, compared to 75% of people in high-income countries. Since we all know that no one is safe until everyone is safe, the risk of more dangerous variants and pathogens remains real because of this public policy lapse and the lack of timely international cooperation. Let me talk a bit about climate change. Climate change is another problem that we cannot solve without scientific innovation and diffusion. We have made real progress. Solar and wind generation costs have plummeted, with trade and international competition playing important roles in driving costs down. But storing that energy is still expensive, so we still need breakthroughs there, like we do on cutting emissions from marine and air transport, from industry, from buildings, from agriculture and land use. We also need more uptake of existing green technologies. For all the Teslas we might see around us here, only 4.5% of vehicles in the US are electric. But MIT researchers are at the forefront of research on batteries and energy storage. The MIT Energy Initiative is working to meet energy needs whilst minimizing climate and other environmental impacts. The Future Energy Systems Center is doing research on every imaginable aspect of the low-carbon transition, from how to produce hydrogen at scale to assessing zero-carbon options for moving freight over long distances. The D-Lab is helping to bring energy to off-grid communities. MIT urban planners are thinking about how to make the megacities of the future both livable and sustainable. So science and innovation are hard at work to help bring solutions to an existential threat of our time, a threat that science also helped to elucidate with the wonderful work of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. But to make these innovations transformative and central to decarbonization of the world, international cooperation is key, and once again the world is failing. 6 months ago at COP26 in Glasgow, where I participated, it became clear that the rich world is again unable and unwilling to fulfill the pledge it made in the Paris Accords of 2015 to put together financing of $100 billion a year at a time when we spend $14 trillion on fiscal stimulus to fight the pandemic, which is a good public policy response, don't get me wrong. It was the right thing to do. But if you can mobilize $14 trillion, I don't understand why you cannot mobilize $100 billion to support poor countries whose contributions to carbon emissions in any case have been minimal, to help them make the transition to a low-carbon future by taking advantage of new and renewable technologies. It is these kinds of public policy failures, these lapses in harnessing science and innovation for the greater public good, that drew me to the career that I've pursued in international development. The question that I asked myself was, how can we allow people to die or to remain poor when the science and innovation to change their lives exists? And what can I do about it? My training at MIT gave me the framework I needed to pursue the career path I followed in international development. It was training that would enable me as a practitioner and policymaker to connect science and innovation to people's lives and to make a difference. Just a couple of examples. At the World Bank, I had the opportunity to bring then innovative approach of sites and services development that we studied in DUSP to poor urban dwellers in Spanish Town, Jamaica, to enable them build their own homes incrementally over time, thereby creating an asset and creating wealth for them for the first time in their lives. When I worked on agriculture, it was bringing improved seeds and new agricultural technologies to poor farmers in Africa and the Middle East to enable them improve their incomes and household welfare at a pace they could not have imagined possible. In Nigeria, as finance minister, and working with the Minister of Agriculture, we implemented budgetary policies that put mobile phones in the hands of 2 million women farmers so that through their electronic wallets, they could directly receive government vouchers that enable them to access improved seeds and fertilizers and improve their yields and production. With respect to finance, we put in place a technology-based financial management solution with biometrics that enable government to weed out millions of ghost workers who also became ghost pensioners. And we saved over $1 billion in fraudulent salary and pension claims. When I joined Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, bridging the gap between science and public policy meant supporting the piloting of a new malaria vaccine that could save millions of children's lives, and stockpiling an experimental Ebola vaccine, giving millions more people a chance at survival should Ebola strike again, which it has. And at the WTO, bridging the gap meant the ability to work with vaccine manufacturers to deal with the problems in their complicated supply chains so that trade in inputs could flow freely and enable them to scale up COVID-19 production for the world. It has also meant the fight to allow more flexible rights to intellectual property for COVID-19 vaccines, whilst protecting incentives for research and development so that developing countries can undertake their own vaccine manufacturing. Ladies and gentlemen, dear graduates, the problem-solving approach I've taken in my career, my quest to bridge gaps between science, innovation, and public policy, to take a bit of risk, to try new approaches, has paid off in a rewarding career whose satisfaction is the ability to serve others. So in these uncertain times, in this complex world in which you're entering, you need not be so daunted if you can search for the opportunities hidden in challenges. If you can take some considered risk and try new approaches, create new pathways, and if you can connect the dots in disconnected approaches to problem solving. Let me conclude by saying that you have all succeeded in making it in truly extraordinary times. To paraphrase Nelson Mandela, one of my heroes, you have made what seemed impossible possible. Your parents and faculty are rightly proud of you, so am I. So, go out into the world, embrace the opportunities to serve. I wish you all the very best. Congratulations and Godspeed.
Thank you, Dr. Okunji Iwala. Wonderful commencement address. Now, Mr. Adam Joseph Miller, President of the Graduate Student Council, will give a salute from the graduate student body. Following this, Mr. Temilo Lula Omitogun, President of the undergraduate class of 2022, will offer a salute, after which go 2022. After which, the President will deliver his charge to the graduates.
Good morning, everyone. What a beautiful day we have to celebrate this wonderfully talented class of graduates. I'm AJ Miller, President of the Graduate Student Council, and it is my pleasure and honor to congratulate the class of 2022 today for their achievements here at MIT. Today marks the end of a chapter, the culmination of so many late nights to forget, lifelong friendships to hold on to, and new experiences to shape our dreams. Dreams I'm sure have changed many times over here. I still remember those first dreams I had of coming to this place because to me, MIT was where the future was built. Be it in arts, engineering, business, or science, this was the place to see technology flourish before our eyes. This was where those who were going to change the world came together to solve the hardest problems and face the biggest challenges with creativity and ingenuity. What I've realized after so many years here is that not only is it the people that make this place special, but it's most especially the students. You all challenged each other, supported each other, and have set the bar even higher as a graduating class. Something I heard a lot about when I first got here was all the doubt so many of us had in ourselves. I can say unequivocally today, though, there are no imposters before me. Nobody sits where you sit by accident. You're all now graduates of MIT, carrying on an incredibly impressive history you all will succeed beyond. Because today also marks the beginning of a new chapter. Before me is the future. You all are now the newest and most impressive class of MIT alumni. As you all move on to what comes next, hold tight to the lessons MIT has given you. Stay confident in yourselves because of the challenges you've overcome. Be courageous in trying because failure is learning. And invest in each other because if P-sets have taught me anything, it's that the biggest problems take banding together and persevering as a team. To those of you I've been so lucky to know, I'll cherish the memories. To the graduate student body I've had the privilege to serve, it's been the honor of a lifetime. And to all the graduates, thank you for making MIT the special place it has been, and I wish you the very best in what comes next.
Class of 2022, friends and family, good afternoon. My name is Temi Omitogun, and I'm the president of our undergraduate class. I hope everyone is having a good day. I am. But you know, at MIT, I didn't always have good days. I had a lot of good days, but I also had a lot of overwhelming days. Hosed. That's a term we use to describe feeling overwhelmed at MIT because going to MIT is like drinking from a fire hose. I think we can all relate. MIT is hard. MIT during an unprecedented pandemic is even harder. But we did it. Even if you don't realize, this is a huge accomplishment. So to everyone here, once more, congratulations. Even though we were going through unprecedented times, it was a pleasure getting through them with all of you. Every day, I am amazed by what all of you accomplish. Every day, I saw my classmates make impressive research contributions, become Mitchell, Schwartzman, and Rhodes Scholars, and win Putnam competitions down the road. Every day, I saw you in Building 2, working on 2009 products that had the potential to improve people's daily lives. Every day, I saw you in the Innovation HQ, dreaming of startups and making plans to shape the world. I see you online, sharing your knowledge and joy for the world. Speaking of, let's record one last video. I need everyone to cheer. Thank you. You know, it's sad that we're all parting ways at the moment, but I'm even more excited than sad. I'm excited to see what more you all will accomplish. I look out and I don't just see friends and classmates. I see future leaders, people who will change the world. I'm going to try my best to keep up and change the world too. So let's all strive to make wherever we are a better place. All right. Now the moment we've all been waiting for. Class of 2022, please join me to raise your ring-bearing hand, take off your brass rat, turn it so that the Bieber faces the world, and put it back on. Now, let's look toward the future together. Congratulations.
Thank you, Tammy, and thanks to you and to AJ for your thoughtful and inspiring remarks, both of you. And to Dr. Okunjo Iwala, thank you for showing all of us how much good one MIT graduate can do. Thank you. Now it is my turn. To the terrific graduates of 2022, congratulations. My job today, as you heard, is to deliver a charge to you. And I will get to that in a minute. But first, I want to recognize the people who helped you charge this far. To everyone who came here this morning to celebrate our graduates, welcome to MIT. To everyone joining us online from around the world, we're so happy you could be with us. And to the parents and families of today's graduates, here and everywhere, a huge congratulations to you as well. This day is a joyful result of your loving support and sacrifice. And for that, you have our deepest respect and admiration. I also know that a few years ago, many of you may have thought that you had succeeded in sending your offspring away for college or grad school. But things didn't turn out exactly that way, so please know how much we appreciate you. Now to our new graduates. It has always puzzled me when events like this are referred to as commencement exercises, because they involve so much sitting down. So I'm going to follow Tammy and start with a little something to get our hearts moving. At MIT, one thing we understand is the importance of distinguishing the signal from the noise. But sometimes, if the noise is noisy enough, it actually becomes the signal. We all know that getting through MIT is not a solo performance. In fact, it usually takes an orchestra of loving assistants. So I would like each of you to hold in your mind now all the people who helped you along the way. Your family, your role models, your professors, your teaching assistants, your friends. In a moment, I hope that together we can send them a signal in a very noisy way. To do that, it's easy. You will need to just say 2 words, as loud as you can. Thank you. You got it? Just those 2 words. thank you. Okay, now ready? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Look, you are lucky that I had already agreed to grade this as pass no record. That first attempt was pretty good. But you can do better. I believe in you. So I'm going to give you another chance. And this time, let's try it with your hands up in the air, all the way up. Now, nice and loud, so that's even noisy for those online. 1, 2, 3. And thank you right back. So why did I ask you to do that? I knew it would create a brief, pleasant sensation for the people you love. But I was also after something deeper. Just ask anyone from brain and cognitive sciences. Course? I was afraid you didn't know that. Course 9, of course. As anyone from Course 9 can tell you, research indicates that simply expressing gratitude does wonderful things to your brain. It gets different parts of your brain to act in a synchronized way. It lights up reward pathways. It gives you even a little shot of dopamine. In other words, expressing gratitude and appreciation for other people is good for our brains, and it's also very good for our hearts. We're living in a difficult and complicated moment in history. All of us could use a reliable device for feeling better. So now, thanks to Brain Size, thanks to Course 9, you have one. The gratitude amplifier is unbreakable. Its battery never dies. It'll never try to sell you anything. You can use it every day forever, and it's free. It is a graduation present you can take with you anywhere, even if all your moving boxes are already taped shut. I'm so extremely grateful to have all of you here on Killian Court on this wonderful day for this tremendously important occasion. I expect that those of you graduating may come to this day with mixed feelings, with excitement for your next steps, but with some sense that you did not get enough time on campus, enough time with your professors, enough time especially with each other. For that reason, I'm particularly grateful that you're here in person. And looking back, I'm also grateful for how much I have learned from members of this class. I want to focus on one effort that several of today's graduates helped to lead, an effort to create an antidote to intensity. We all know that MIT is intense. That is why we love it. MIT attracts intense people, like all of you, and then we push each other and we inspire each other intensely. But everyone needs a break from the intensity sometimes. Different students find different ways to relieve it: music, sports, ballroom dancing. And some students even find relief by inventing ways to relieve stress for other people. A few years ago, before the pandemic, a group of students on the Undergraduate Association looked around and concluded that what MIT really needed was a casual place in the middle of campus where students could stop, relax, hang out, study if need be, and get free food 24 hours a day. When a space freed up in room 26110, the Banana Lounge was born. Yes, the Banana Lounge. for those who have not been there yet, the Banana Lounge is a long, sunny room near the main campus crossroads. It is full of colorful paintings, great big leafy plants, Lego sets, beanbag chairs, and boxes of bananas. Now, as a native of Venezuela, I take certain things very seriously. And one of them is tropical fruit. If they had asked me, it would have been all about mangoes. Thank you for that. But of course, with a mango, there is that huge, slippery, ridiculous seed. As the students determined very quickly, the mango simply could not compete with the elegant engineering of the seedless, self-packaged banana. In its charming quirkiness, the Banana Lounge is very MIT. And it turns out to be very MIT in every other way, too. The students began with a prototype lounge, tested it in real-world conditions, and optimized it for efficiency and comfort. They evaluated competing fruit for comparative nutritional content, analyzed alternative supply chains, determined the ideal green-yellow ratio in purchasing, and worked to minimize the per banana unit cost. They tracked and calibrated the temperature and humidity of their banana inventory in real time online. And they established protocols to freeze excess supply and to capture the value as banana bread. They secured funding from a very generous member of the class of 1987, Brad Feld, who paid for all of this year's bananas. Thank you, Brad. And they developed the cutting-edge concept of free coffee, which, in their words, was critical to stimulating the lounge atmosphere and promoting conversation. Already, the lounge has served more than 500,000 bananas. 2 of them were mine. And it has generated a very significant number of banana-induced naps. The students have done all this essentially themselves, applying their MIT skills and the most delightful MIT values. They identified an unarticulated problem, dared to try a crazy idea, worked incredibly hard, and in the process, they built a wonderful, tropical, perfectly improbable new MIT institution. And we could not be more grateful. So it is in that spirit that I deliver my charge to you. I'm going to use a word that feels very comfortable at MIT, although it has taken on a troubling new meaning elsewhere. But I know that our graduates will know what I mean. After you depart for your new destinations, I want to ask you to hack the world until you make the world a little more like MIT. More daring and more passionate, more rigorous, inventive, and ambitious, more humble, more respectful, more generous, more kind. And because the people of MIT also like to fix things that are broken, as you strive to hack the world, please try to heal the world too. Our society is like a big, complicated family in the midst of a terrible argument. I believe we can each try to make it better by finding ways to listen to each other with compassion, to focus on achieving our shared objectives, and to try constantly to remind each other of our common humanity. I know you will find your own ways to help with this healing too. This morning, we share with the world almost 3,700 new graduates who are ready for this urgent and timeless problem set. You came to MIT with exceptional qualities of your own. And now, after years of focused and intense dedication, you leave us equipped with a distinctive set of skills and steeped in this community's deepest values: a commitment to excellence, integrity, rising on your own merits, boldness, humility, an open spirit of collaboration, a strong desire to make a positive impact, and a sense of responsibility to make the world a better place. So now, go out there, join the world, find your calling, solve the unsolvable, invent the future, take the high road, try always to share your bananas, and you will continue to make your family, including your MIT family, proud. On this wonderful day, I am proud of all of you. To every one of the members of the graduating class of 2022, please accept my best wishes for a happy and successful life and career. Before I end, my dear graduates, congratulations.
Thank you, President Reif, for your always inspiring words and that rousing charge. I couldn't help but think, may all of us put banana lounges in the companies and organizations that we help build. I want to also thank our guest speaker one more time, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala. Thank you for being here with us. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Annalisa Weigel, the Chief Marshal, who will greet the graduates. Dr. Weigel is a multi-degree alumna, currently serving as the president of the MIT Alumni Association. Dr. Weigel.
It is my honor to recognize the class of 2022, the newest alumni of MIT. The entire alumni body, over 143,000 strong, joins me in congratulating all of the 2022 graduates and officially welcoming you into our alumni family, your infinite connection to MIT.
Okay. Congratulations and best wishes to all the families, friends, and the graduates of the class of 2022. During your years here, you've been a part of MIT. From this one MIT celebration, with the degree you now have in hand, you will forever be part of MIT. Congratulations. The commencement ceremony of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology is now concluded. And at this time, would everyone please rise and join the chorallaries of MIT in singing the school song, Arise All Ye of MIT.
Fellowship, the future shall ever be a memory that will never die for ye of MIT. Thy sons and daughters, MIT, return from far and wide and gather here once more to be renourished by thy side. And as we raise our glasses high to pledge our love for thee, we join all those of days gone by in praise of MIT. Oh, I wish that I were back again at Tecum Boylston Street, just in my dinky uniform, so dapper and so neat. I'm crazy after calculus, I never had enough. 'Twas hard to be dragged away so young, 'twas horribly, awfully tough. Hoorah for technology, ology, oh, glorious old technology, ology, oh. Back in the days that were free from care in the ology varsity shop, with nothing to do but analyze air in an anometrical top. The differentiation of the trigonometric powers, the constant pi that made new science of happy days of us. Hoorah for technology, ology, oh, glorious old technology, ology, oh. Take me back in the session to the glorious institute. I yearn for the inspiration of the technological. Take me back, and show me the quizzical, physical path, and chapel and the back. But how I go to take me back, will take me back to tech. La 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 CHUSCTTS INSTITUTEOFTE and then it's CHNOLOGNY comes after G. It's the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Hey!